The Great Escape wasn't just a World War II prisoner of war film, it was a revolutionary cinematic experience forged in chaos, danger, and behind the scenes conflict that nearly derailed the entire production. While you've seen Steve McQueen's iconic motorcycle jump and heard Elmer Bernstein's unforgettable score, what you don't know is that actors were arrested during filming, real war prisoners served as consultants, and the film's stars secretly despised each other. Director John Sturges created not just movie magic, but a genuine war zone, with real tunnels being built, dangerous stunts causing injuries, and stars demanding script changes that threatened to shut down production. Today, I'm revealing 20 weird facts about the Great Escape that even the most dedicated fans don't know. Plus, I'll share one shocking bonus fact about what happened to a real-life prisoner that the filmmakers deliberately kept hidden from audiences. Number 20. Richard Attenborough and Steve McQueen secretly hated each other. The tension you feel between squadron leader Roger Bartlett and Captain Virgil Hiltz wasn't just good acting, it was genuine animosity. Richard Attenborough later revealed that working with McQueen on The Great Escape was one of the hardest things he'd ever done. The clash wasn't just about acting styles, it was a fundamental collision between Attenborough's methodical British approach and McQueen's rebellious American attitude. While they maintained professional facades on set, behind the scenes was a different story. Crew members recalled heated arguments over scene interpretations and camera time. McQueen's constant script change demands particularly infuriated Attenborough, who believed in honoring the original screenplay and the real prisoners' experiences. This wasn't just typical Hollywood ego clashing, it was a tension that permeated the entire production, creating an unintentional authenticity to their limited on-screen interactions. Their mutual dislike became so legendary that when they reunited for The Sand Pebbles in 1966, the production team deliberately scheduled their scenes with minimal overlap. Number 19. Donald Pleasence was actually a POW during World War II. Sometimes truth makes for the most compelling casting. Donald Pleasence, who portrayed the mild-mannered forger Flight Lieutenant Colin Blythe, brought haunting authenticity to his role because he had actually lived it. Pleasance served in the Royal Air Force during World War II as an aircraft wireless operator. When his Lancaster bomber was shot down over France, he was captured and spent time in a German prisoner of war camp until the war's end, mirroring his character's predicament with eerie precision. What's astounding isn't just that he'd been a POW, but that when he offered advice to director John Sturges about camp conditions, Sturges politely asked him to keep his opinions to himself. Sturges had no idea about Pleasance's past until later in production, when the actor's insights suddenly became invaluable. The revelation transformed Pleasance from just another cast member to an essential technical consultant. His first-hand experience with German guards, camp routines, and the psychological toll of imprisonment infused his performance with a quiet desperation that couldn't be faked. When Pleasance's character discovers his deteriorating eyesight, the devastation visible on his face draws from very real wartime trauma. Number 18. Steve McQueen actually got arrested and jailed during filming. The line between McQueen and his rebellious character, Hiltz, blurred dramatically during production. Local German police, well aware of the Hollywood production in their town, set up a speed trap specifically to catch crew members driving to set. They caught many production team members, but Steve McQueen won the prize for the highest speed. The chief of police reportedly told him, "Herr McQueen, we have caught several of your comrades today, but you have won the prize." Unlike his fictional counterpart, McQueen couldn't bounce a baseball against his cell wall. He was actually arrested and briefly jailed. The incident wasn't just ironic, given McQueen's role as the cooler king. It reinforced his already growing reputation as Hollywood's ultimate rebel. Producers were initially furious about the delay, but quickly realized the publicity value. The local press covered the incident extensively, inadvertently generating perfect promotional material for a film about imprisoned men seeking freedom. What audiences never realized was that McQueen's authentic frustration in subsequent cooler scenes wasn't just masterful acting, it was drawn from his very real, very recent experience behind German bars. Life had imitated art in the most unexpected way. Number 17. The real tunnel digger worked as a consultant on the film Wally Floody, a former Canadian POW who was part of the actual Great Escape. Didn't just inspire the story, he helped create its on-screen authenticity. After surviving the war, Floody was hired as a technical consultant and spent over a year working on the film. It wasn't just his presence that made a difference, it was his meticulous attention to detail. Floody had been the principal tunnel engineer at Stalag Luft III, nicknamed the Tunnel King by fellow prisoners. Though he was transferred before the escape occurred, his expertise in tunnel construction, camp security patterns, and German guard psychology proved invaluable. What's remarkable is how Floody insisted on historical accuracy despite Hollywood's creative tendencies. The tunnels in the film, named Tom, Dick, and Harry, were built to precise specifications under his guidance. The tunnel scenes weren't created with models or special effects, they were actual full-size working tunnels with authentic lighting, rails, and wooden shoring. Floody's involvement extended beyond technical advice. He shared intimate details of prisoner life, from the psychological impact of confinement to the ingenious ways they maintained morale. His experience later proved crucial when he testified at the Nuremberg trials about the execution of recaptured prisoners. A dark truth the film doesn't shy away from depicting. Number 16. Charles Bronson's tunnel, claustrophobia, wasn't acting the scene where Danny, the Tunnel King, Walensky, suffers a claustrophobic breakdown wasn't just convincing drama, it was rooted in Charles Bronson's actual phobia. Before becoming an actor, Bronson had worked as a coal miner in Pennsylvania. Years spent in narrow, unstable mine shafts had left him with a genuine fear of enclosed spaces. Director John Sturges was unaware of this condition when casting him as the chief tunneler, creating an uncomfortable irony. The man responsible for digging the escape route was terrified of being underground. Rather than hiding his condition, Bronson channeled it directly into his performance. The sweat beading on his forehead during tunnel scenes wasn't makeup, it was real anxiety. Crew members reported that Bronson would need time to compose himself before and after filming in the confined tunnel sets, often emerging visibly shaken. In one particularly intense scene, when Danny freezes in panic as the tunnel begins to collapse, Bronson's reactions were so authentic that several crew members rushed to check on him between takes. His fellow actors, particularly John Layton, who played his tunneling partner, developed genuine concern for Bronson during these sequences. The cruel twist of fate that gave the film's master tunneler severe claustrophobia created some of the most authentic emotional moments in the entire movie. Suffering that didn't require any acting at all. Number 15. The film's barbed wire was handmade by the entire cast and crew. The miles of imposing barbed wire surrounding the camp weren't purchased or machine-made props. They were painstakingly created by hand by everyone involved in the production. During downtime between scenes, director John Sturges implemented an unusual all-hands activity. From stars like McQueen and Garner to camera assistants and catering staff, everyone was assigned the monotonous task of taking thin, 5-inch strings of black rubber and knotting them around longer rubber strands. The finished results formed the coils and fences of barbed wire seen throughout the film. This wasn't just a cost-saving measure, but a brilliant team-building exercise. The tedious work created an unexpected camaraderie among the international cast and crew, mirroring the solidarity of the POWs they were portraying. Many actors later recalled these rubber knotting sessions as surprisingly meaningful bonding experiences. The rubber barbed wire also proved crucial for the film's stunts, particularly McQueen's motorcycle scenes. Real metal would have been prohibitively dangerous, but the rubber version allowed for authentic-looking crashes without serious injury. The fence that Hiltz famously crashes into during his escape attempt was entirely handcrafted through these collective efforts, a genuine group achievement that appears seamlessly authentic on screen. Number 14. The jump scene that made McQueen famous wasn't actually him. The most iconic motorcycle stunt in film history, Captain Hiltz jumping his motorcycle over a barbed wire fence, wasn't performed by Steve McQueen, despite what many viewers still believe today. McQueen, an accomplished motorcyclist, insisted on doing many of his own riding scenes. However, the insurance company absolutely refused to let the film's star attempt the dangerous 60-foot fence jump. Instead, his friend and motorcycle shop owner Bud Ekins performed the stunt that would define McQueen's action hero image for generations. What's less known is that McQueen actually attempted the jump himself in practice runs and crashed. This confirmed the producer's fears and sealed the decision to use Ekins. The filming of the scene was so masterfully done that for decades, most viewers assumed it was McQueen himself making the leap. The irony runs deeper. McQueen was so frequently associated with the stunt that he eventually had to correct the record himself. During an appearance on The Tonight Show, he told Johnny Carson, "It wasn't me, it was Bud Ekins." This honesty was rare in an era when stars routinely took credit for stunt work they hadn't performed. The jump that came to epitomize McQueen's daredevil persona and cemented his status as the king of cool was, in reality, his talented friend's achievement, a cinematic sleight of hand that created one of Hollywood's most enduring legends. Number 13. McQueen chased himself in the motorcycle scenes. In one of cinema's most brilliant editing tricks, Steve McQueen literally pursued himself during the famous motorcycle chase sequence. Director John Sturges allowed McQueen, an avid motorcyclist, to pull double duty in this scene, with fascinating results. During filming, McQueen not only played his character Hiltz escaping on a motorcycle, but also donned a German uniform to portray one of the pursuing soldiers. Through the magic of editing, these scenes were cut together to create the illusion of McQueen essentially chasing himself across the German countryside. This wasn't just a quirky production decision. McQueen's exceptional riding skills made him more capable than many stunt riders, and he personally wanted to ensure the authenticity of both the escape and pursuit. His intimate knowledge of motorcycle handling allowed him to create a more convincing cat and mouse dynamic, knowing exactly how a pursuer would react to each evasive maneuver. The revelation adds an entirely new dimension to watching the chase scene. In several shots, when German soldiers close in on Hiltz, it's actually McQueen hunting down his own character, a meta-cinematic moment that few viewers ever realized they were witnessing. This dual performance exemplifies both McQueen's dedication to his craft and the filmmaker's innovative approach to creating authentic action sequences. Number 12. Real full-size tunnels were built for filming rather than relying on miniature models or camera tricks. The production team constructed actual full-scale working tunnels for the film, complete with functioning lighting systems, trolley rails, and wooden support structures. These weren't simplified sets, but meticulously detailed replicas based on survivors' accounts and Wally Floodie's expert guidance. The main tunnel set stretched over 60 feet in length, buried beneath the purpose-built camp set outside Munich. The confined space, barely 2 feet wide by 2 feet tall, created genuine challenges for both actors and camera crews. The decision to build real tunnels wasn't just about visual authenticity, it fundamentally shaped the performances. Actors experienced the actual claustrophobic conditions that prisoners endured, creating natural tension in their performances. Cinematographer Daniel Fapp developed innovative lighting techniques to capture the suffocating darkness and occasional flickering illumination that defined the real escape attempt. Most remarkably, these tunnels weren't just static set pieces. They contained working ventilation systems similar to those ingeniously devised by the actual prisoners, using milk tin cans linked together. When Danny and Willie tap on the pipes to communicate in the film, they're using reconstructions of the actual signaling methods employed at Stalag Luft III. This commitment to physical authenticity created tunnel scenes with an immediacy and tension that special effects simply couldn't replicate on Kiitimok, a testament to the filmmaker's dedication to honoring the real prisoner's extraordinary engineering feat. Number 11. Richard Harris was originally cast as Big X. Before Richard Attenborough stepped into the crucial role of squadron leader Roger Big X Bartlett, another Richard was set to lead the escape committee, the fiery Irish actor Richard Harris. Harris, fresh off his success in Mutiny on the Bounty and the Guns of Navarone, was director Sturgis's first choice for the pivotal role of the escape mastermind. Contracts were signed and pre-production meetings had begun when an unexpected scheduling conflict arose. Harris's work on The Sporting Life, 1963, fell significantly behind schedule, forcing him to withdraw from The Great Escape at the 11th hour. This last-minute casting crisis could have derailed the production. However, in what proved to be a fortunate twist of fate, Richard Attenborough, not initially considered for the role Sturgis, was quickly approached. Despite the rushed nature of his casting, Attenborough's controlled, meticulous portrayal of Bartlett became one of the film's defining performances. The alternate casting raises fascinating questions about how different the film might have been. Harris's more volatile, passionate acting style would have created a markedly different dynamic with McQueen's Hiltz and fundamentally changed the film's emotional center. What began as a production emergency ultimately delivered the perfect actor for a role that required both steely determination and quiet authority, demonstrating how casting accidents sometimes create cinematic perfection. Number 10. The Americans weren't actually involved in the real escape. Go ahead and like and subscribe because I'm about to reveal one of Hollywood's biggest historical rewrites, one that caused significant controversy, especially in Britain. Despite what the film portrays, there were no Americans involved in the actual tunnel escape from Stalag Luft III. The prominent roles played by Steve McQueen, James Garner, and James Coburn were pure Hollywood invention. By the time of the real escape in March 1944, all American POWs had been transferred to a different compound within the camp. The actual escape was executed entirely by British, Canadian, Norwegian, Polish, French, Greek, Czech, and other European Allied forces. This historical revision wasn't accidental. It was calculated. Studio executives insisted on American characters to ensure box office success in the United States. Scriptwriter W.R. Burnett explicitly acknowledged that he invented the American characters to make the film more commercially viable for American audiences. The decision created lasting controversy, particularly among British veterans who felt their countrymen's achievements had been appropriated. Some survivors of Stalag Luft III expressed disappointment that their story had been Americanized, while others understood the commercial realities of filmmaking. What makes this fact particularly striking is that the film otherwise strives for considerable historical accuracy. The attention to detail in depicting the camp layout, escape techniques, and ultimate fate of many escapees stands in stark contrast to the deliberate nationality changes of key characters, revealing how even true stories bend to commercial considerations. Number 9. The film was shot in German locations where actual war memories were still fresh. The decision to film on location in Bavaria, Germany created unexpected tensions and unique authenticity that couldn't have been achieved on Hollywood backlots. Director John Sturges faced strong studio pressure to film in California, where costs could be better controlled. Instead, he insisted on shooting in Germany just 18 years after the war's end. This meant filming in communities where memories of the conflict remained raw and where many locals had personal connections to the war. A complete POW camp replica was constructed in a Bavarian forest near Munich, with exterior escape sequences shot in the Rhine country and areas near the North Sea. These weren't random choices. They were selected to match the actual German landscapes traversed by escaping prisoners. What made this decision especially bold was the mixed reception from locals. Some German residents were uncomfortable with the production, seeing it as reopening recent wounds. Others, particularly younger Germans, were fascinated by the production and eager to participate as extras. Several older Germans who had served in non-Nazi military roles even provided technical advice on uniform details and military protocols. This authentic setting created unplanned moments of poignancy. During filming of the execution scenes, several elderly local extras became visibly distressed, not just acting, but processing real trauma. These genuine emotional responses permeate the film, giving it a gravitas that transcends typical war movies and honors the actual historical events with unusual immediacy. Number 8. James Garner's character was based on his own war experiences. James Garner's portrayal of the Scrounger was more personally authentic than most viewers realized. During the Korean War, Garner had served in the U.S. Army and developed a reputation as a real-life scrounger, someone with an uncanny ability to procure needed supplies through charm, cunning, and creative bartering. This wasn't just coincidental typecasting. When preparing for the role, Garner specifically drew from his military experiences, incorporating techniques he had personally used to obtain scarce resources for his unit. The scene where Hendley charms the guard, Werner, to acquire official German identity papers, mirrors actual psychological approaches Garner had employed during his service. Director Sturges, learning of Garner's background, gave him unusual freedom to improvise aspects of his character. Many of Hendley's casual mannerisms, the easy smile, confident negotiating style, and ability to instantly build rapport with both allies and enemies, came directly from Garner's genuine military toolkit rather than scripted direction. What makes this connection particularly powerful is that Garner rarely discussed his war experiences in public. He suffered shrapnel wounds in Korea that continued to affect him throughout his life. His willingness to channel these experiences into his performance created one of the film's most natural, likable characters, a tribute to the real scroungers whose resourcefulness proved essential to survival and escape efforts in POW camps across Europe. Number 7. Studio executives tried to shut down production multiple times. Behind the triumphant finished film lies a troubled production that executives repeatedly attempted to terminate. The Great Escape wasn't just challenging to make, it nearly wasn't completed at all. United Artists executives grew increasingly alarmed as the production faced multiple crises: budget overruns, scheduling delays, injured stunt performers, and logistical nightmares filming in rural Germany. Internal studio memos reveal at least 3 serious attempts to pull funding and abandon the project, particularly after early footage was deemed too European and lacking commercial appeal. Director John Sturges fought these interventions through sheer determination. When ordered to wrap production early and return to Los Angeles, he reportedly ignored communications from studio heads. During one particularly contentious period, Sturges and producer James Clavell personally guaranteed completion funds against their future earnings to prevent a shutdown. The most serious threat came after McQueen's demands for script changes caused costly production delays. Studio executives flew to Germany with termination papers, intending to shut down filming unless McQueen accepted the original screenplay. A tense standoff ensued, with Sturges mediating a compromise that satisfied both the star and the studio, but just barely. This behind-the-scenes drama mirrors the film's own themes of perseverance against overwhelming odds. When audiences cheered the completed film in 1963, few realized they were witnessing a project that, like The Escape itself, succeeded despite numerous attempts to prevent it. A meta-narrative of determination that makes the film's ultimate triumph even more remarkable. Number 6. Elmer Bernstein's iconic score was nearly rejected. The instantly recognizable march that has become synonymous with The Great Escape faced surprising resistance before becoming one of cinema's most enduring musical themes. When composer Elmer Bernstein first presented his now famous theme to director John Sturges, the reaction was decidedly lukewarm. Sturges worried the jaunty, almost playful march was too lighthearted for a film that included serious themes and ended with the execution of 50 escapees. He requested something more traditionally dramatic and appropriately somber. Bernstein, however, stood firm in his artistic vision. He argued that the prisoners' spirits and determination should be reflected in music that captured their resilience rather than their circumstances. The upbeat march represented not their imprisonment, but their irrepressible desire for freedom, the psychological victory even when physical escape failed. After much debate, a compromise was reached. Bernstein would maintain his signature theme but develop darker variations for the film's more tragic moments. This intuitive musical approach, shifting from major to minor keys as fortunes change, created a score that perfectly complemented the film's emotional journey. The music that studio executives once dismissed as too cheerful became so iconic that it transcended the film itself. Used in countless commercials, parodies, and sporting events, Bernstein's theme has achieved cultural immortality, all because a composer refused to abandon his creative instincts despite significant pressure to conform to more conventional war film scoring. Number 5. The film caused diplomatic tensions between Britain and Germany while audiences cheered The Great Escape in theaters. Behind the scenes, it sparked uncomfortable diplomatic exchanges between British and German officials that nearly affected international relations. The film's unflinching portrayal of the murder of 50 recaptured prisoners by the Gestapo, a historically accurate atrocity, created particular sensitivity. When the film premiered in West Germany, several scenes were heavily censored or entirely removed. This editorial interference created a diplomatic incident when British officials objected to what they viewed as historical whitewashing. The British Foreign Office formally protested the German edits, arguing that depicting accurate war crimes was essential to historical reckoning. German authorities countered that the film risked inflaming anti-German sentiment at a delicate time in post-war reconciliation efforts. Behind closed doors, diplomatic notes were exchanged at surprisingly high governmental levels over what was, ostensibly, just a Hollywood movie. The controversy intensified when survivors of Stalag Luft III and families of the murdered officers became involved. Speaking publicly about the importance of historical truth, German censors eventually relented on most edits, though some compromises were made regarding specific dialogue about German military complicity. This diplomatic tension revealed how deeply the wounds of war still affected European politics nearly 2 decades after the conflict ended. A film meant as entertainment unexpectedly became a vehicle for necessary but painful conversations about historical accountability, conversations that continued long after the film left theaters. Number 4. The motorcycle was deliberately anachronistic. One of the film's most glaring historical inaccuracies was intentional, and it involved Steve McQueen's iconic motorcycle. The Triumph TR6 trophy motorcycle used in the film wasn't just the wrong model for the time period. It wouldn't exist for another 8 years after the events depicted. This anachronism wasn't an oversight but a deliberate choice driven by several factors. McQueen, an avid motorcyclist, specifically requested a Triumph TR6, his preferred bike and one he was intimately familiar with riding. Production designers raised concerns about the historical inaccuracy, but director Sturgis made a calculated decision to prioritize performance capabilities over period authenticity. The motorcycle scenes weren't part of the actual historical escape either. They were added at McQueen's suggestion to capitalize on his writing skills and create a more action-oriented climax. Survivors of the real escape noted this invention with mixed reactions. Some appreciated the cinematic excitement, while others felt it undermined the actual methods used. What's particularly interesting about this deliberate anachronism is how it shaped the film's legacy. The motorcycle chase became the movie's most memorable sequence, elevating a tactical embellishment into the film's defining moment. This trade-off between strict historical accuracy and cinematic impact created a signature sequence that, while historically questionable, delivered an indelible symbol of the human spirit's refusal to accept captivity. The anachronistic motorcycle represents a larger truth about historical films. Sometimes emotional authenticity matters more than factual precision in conveying the essence of historical events to audiences. Number 3. An actual tragedy occurred during filming. The line between cinematic depiction and reality blurred tragically during production when a serious accident occurred that nearly cost a stunt performer his life. During one of the motorcycle sequences, not the famous jump scene, but a different chase segment, a German stunt rider hit an unexpected depression in the ground at high speed. The motorcycle flipped forward violently, throwing the rider headfirst into a tree. Production immediately halted as medical personnel rushed to the scene. The rider suffered a severe concussion, broken collarbone, and spinal injuries that required hospitalization for several weeks. This accident created a somber atmosphere on set, particularly among the stunt team. Many questioned whether the motorcycle sequences should be scaled back for safety reasons. What's remarkable is how this real accident influenced the filming of subsequent scenes. Director Sturgis insisted on incorporating the genuine danger of motorcycle pursuit into the narrative. When Hiltz navigates treacherous terrain during his escape, the camera lingers on potential hazards, not just as artificial tension builders, but as acknowledgments of the real risks involved in both the historical escape and its contemporary recreation. The injured stunt performer eventually returned to set as an observer during final shooting days, a moment that cast and crew described as emotional and grounding. His presence reminded everyone that while they were making a film about historical courage, creating that story required contemporary bravery from those bringing it to life. Number 2. The actors built genuine camp solidarity. What began as a cast of international stars with little connection to each other transformed into something remarkable during production, a genuine community that mirrored the solidarity of actual POWs. Director John Sturgis made a calculated decision to house the entire international cast in the same small Bavarian hotel for the duration of filming. Initially, this created tensions as different acting traditions, languages, and personalities clashed. British actors like Attenborough and Pleasance approached scenes methodically, while Americans like McQueen and Garner preferred more spontaneous techniques. Rather than intervening in these frictions, Sturgis encouraged them, then deliberately structured filming to require cross-cultural collaboration. The resulting dynamic wasn't just method. Acting, it was psychological engineering. As filming progressed, national boundaries among the cast dissolved. They began socializing after hours, sharing techniques, and developing genuine bonds that translated directly to screen chemistry. James Garner later wrote that the experience created the most cohesive cast I've ever worked with. Charles Bronson, known for being intensely private, began hosting card games in his room that became nightly traditions. Even Richard Attenborough and Steve McQueen, despite their differences, developed a grudging professional respect. This organic community building created an authenticity to the prisoners' interactions that transcended acting. When the characters on screen show camaraderie in the face of adversity, the emotions displayed aren't simulated. They're genuine connections forged during a challenging production that, in its own way, isolated and united a diverse group of men just as war had done for the real prisoners they portrayed. Number 1. The film changed how Germans viewed their own history. Beyond its entertainment value, The Great Escape profoundly influenced Germany's ongoing process of confronting its Nazi past, an impact few Hollywood productions can claim. When the film premiered in West Germany, it generated unprecedented public discussions about wartime accountability. While earlier war films had been dismissed as Allied propaganda, The Great Escape's nuanced portrayal of German characters, distinguishing between honorable Wehrmacht officers like von Luger and fanatical Nazis, allowed German audiences to engage with difficult history without total condemnation. This distinction proved crucial. Young Germans, born after the war, reported that the film prompted their first substantive conversations with parents and grandparents about wartime experiences. Teachers began using the film in classrooms to discuss moral choices under totalitarian regimes. German newspapers published editorial series exploring individual responsibility within systems of oppression. Most significantly, the film's unflinching depiction of the murder of recaptured prisoners challenged the convenient narrative that war crimes were committed only by dedicated Nazi ideologues rather than ordinary soldiers following orders. Several German historical journals cited the film's release as a turning point in more honest national self-examination. This cultural impact wasn't accidental. Director Sturges consulted German historians during production precisely because he hoped to create a film that would be taken seriously in Germany itself. The Great Escape's lasting legacy extends beyond entertainment. It became an unexpected but powerful tool in Germany's complex journey toward historical reckoning, demonstrating cinema's unique capacity to make difficult truth accessible where more direct confrontation might fail. Bonus fact, the film's most closely guarded secret involves what wasn't shown: families. Of the 50 executed escapees, specifically requested that certain details about the escape remain classified, not to protect German sensibilities, but to preserve escape techniques for future conflicts. These omitted elements included the specific chemical compounds prisoners developed to forge documents, the precise engineering of air pump systems for tunnel ventilation, and most importantly, details about how outside resistance networks coordinated with prisoners. Though these techniques would seem outdated by modern standards, military advisors confirmed that the fundamental principles remained valuable for potential future POWs. What makes this especially poignant is that some of these families initially opposed the film entirely, viewing Hollywood's treatment of their loved ones' deaths as exploitation. Their perspective shifted after director Sturges invited several family members to visit the set. Witnessing the production's commitment to honoring the escapees' ingenuity and courage, they not only gave their blessing, but actively collaborated by sharing personal letters and mementos that informed character development. The film's famous line, "It is the sworn duty of all officers to try to escape," takes on deeper meaning with this knowledge. These weren't just characters in a thriller, but real men whose innovations might save future captives. Their families' willingness to share their stories while protecting operational details represents an extraordinary balance between commemorating the past and preserving knowledge for an uncertain future. In honoring this request for selective secrecy, The Great Escape demonstrates a rare ethical dimension in filmmaking, respecting both historical truth and ongoing real-world implications of that history. If you found these facts fascinating, make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video with fellow film lovers. And remember, as Captain Hiltz might say, the real challenging jumps in life are always worth attempting, even when success isn't guaranteed.